I'm Julie Van Bergen. I'm the principal at Beach Elementary in Fruitport, Michigan.
My name is Angie Lockhart. I teach kindergarten at Beach Elementary in Fruitport Community Schools.
My name is Debbie Olson, and I'm a fifth grade teacher at Beach Elementary.
So I experienced EBLI when I was a principal of an elementary school, and I had at that time an opportunity to have a teacher do a pilot to see could this really work with kids, because I was very doubtful. I had training in whole language teaching of reading, and even though I didn't know that that worked either, I was very dubious of a system that sounded like a return to phonics. So we challenged ourselves to take a group of kids that we had our struggling readers, and I told my teacher, show me what you can do in 6 weeks. The results were astounding.
I came from Hart, Michigan, and I had taught Title I, and I had met Nora Shabazi, who runs the EBLI business, and when I first met her, I didn't really want to implement EBLI strategies. I didn't think it would work, and so I did action research, and the students that I had went from being the lowest readers in first grade to being the top readers in first grade in a very short time. So when I transitioned to becoming a principal, the first thing I did was notice that even though the kindergarten teachers thought they were doing a good job, that they could go much further. So I offered EBLI to a kindergarten teacher, and she took me up on it, and immediately there was just a transition. Not only did other teachers want to investigate and go to EBLI, but so did our Title I teacher and our special education teachers.
I was trained in EBLI about 7 years ago. I started as a Title I reading interventionist at Shetler Elementary. There I saw students, before EBLI, I saw students in groups of 3, 4, or 5 in small groups, and I would pull them out of their classrooms. After the EBLI training, I saw students one-on-one. I serviced about 75 to 100 students a week, and sometimes 1 session or 2 sessions a week. Now I teach kindergarten, where I'm able to use all of the EBLI skills that I learned in my one-on-one sessions, and I'm able to incorporate that into my whole group class instruction.
7 years ago, when I was trained in EBLI, I thought, after going through the 3 days of training, I was like, oh my goodness, I learned so much, and I was so excited to even do stuff myself. I felt like it was almost more meaningful to what I was doing in class versus some of my undergraduate stuff that I took. It really taught me how to teach kids how to read or really look at words differently.
Currently, every teacher that teaches at Beach and also within Fruitport in kindergarten through 5th grade is expected to have EBLI training and implement it.
In my one-on-one instruction, right away I realized how little I knew before EBLI. That was my first aha moment, that I could go in and realize that kiddos really didn't know how to decode multisyllable words, and I wasn't able to teach them how.
We have a lot of teachers who have found a way to embed EBLI into their teaching so that I'm not still focusing on foundational, but now we're doing it all within the context of real reading.
And at first we did have a word work time where we focused just on EBLI strategies, because these were 5th graders who had never seen that before. And as time evolved, I ended up not having to have just a word work time. It ended up being integrated into the other subjects that I taught.
We have one in particular, the elementary school, who's been doing EBLI the longest and probably the most systemically longest. They are making the greatest gains in reading. They send on more students who are more capable of reading, probably have less spelling errors because they're reading, at their potential.
What I noticed right away with test scores is immediately they jumped. I was looking at maybe 20 to 30 words a minute gain in fluency right off the bat, once they were confident enough to be able to move through the words that they needed assistance with. Also, I noticed that in the whole classroom environment, students were more confident and they were able to go into their classroom and they were able to succeed at their grade level.
In 2008, right after I came, we were actually the lowest building in the entire county of Muskegon, and within the last year to 2 years, we are scoring in the top of the county along with North Muskegon.
The lower socioeconomic status is pretty high here. We're above 50% of the lower socioeconomic status, and where we were when I started teaching 9 years ago and where we are now, we're a reward school. We're up in the top percentile.
And so we've seen our kindergarten numbers go from actually probably about 50%, which what we call benchmarked, up to between 90 and 100% after kindergarten. Currently at third grade, we are just under 70%. At fourth grade, we are just under 80%, and at fifth grade, we went from 57% to 72% being benchmarked.
When we started our Ames web testing, the majority of my students scored a 0. Benchmark in the fall is considered 3 sounds in a minute. We score letter sound fluency and phoneme. We don't move to nonsense until winter. And so even though a student looks benchmarked when they have 3 letter sounds, the reality is they all come in at ground zero. And by this time in May, all of my students are benchmarked in letter sound fluency. They are all benchmarked in phoneme segmentation. All but 3 of them are benchmarked in nonsense word fluency. Benchmark for Ames Web is considered to be 33, and my 3 kiddos that were not benchmarked were 30, 31, and 32. So they are high strategic. When you report those graphs out, you are able to compare them to DIBELS. And by DIBELS standards, all of my students are benchmarked in all areas. So it's very exciting.
Our special ed numbers as far as reading have dropped significantly. Currently, we only have 8 students that qualify in K through 2nd grade. And in 3 through 5, we have 11 students that qualify, and many of those are in math. What we also do is we have push in language special ed, and there's just under 60 students that have language IEPs, and our speech and language pathologist has taken EBLI. She implements it within her teaching, and she teaches through writing workshop using EBLI strategies, and we have seen significant numbers of students that have dropped having a speech and language IEP.
There's a lot less frustration with students that, behavior-wise, I have a student in my classroom this year who has come so far in reading since he was in 1st or 2nd grade, and his behaviors back then too were much more escalated than they are now. I mean, we don't even have an issue hardly now, and I think part of that comes from feeling successful in school. When you're successful in your classes and you're successful at reading, you don't feel that, I need attention somewhere else. I think that's very helpful, and I think that's contributed as well.
I believe it's 5% that are Michigan Reward schools. It is a distinguished honor, and I know that people ask, what have you done? I do believe the full implementation of EBLI makes a huge difference in teachers being able to be diagnostic and prescriptive and help kids read to their full potential.